today we'll be doing our grade 1 English lesson on action verbs. And before we start with our lesson on action verbs, you're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with your username as well as your password, and then you're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 1. All right, so once you have selected the subject of language arts, grade 1, and then you're going to scroll down up until you get to the chapter of action verbs. So that is basically going to be our chapter for today, our grade 1 chapter for today, which is action verbs. All right, so we said our chapter for today is action verbs. The subject is English language arts. Grade 1. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of action verbs is to complete the sentence with the verb to match a picture or to match the picture. We're going to identify action verbs, and we're also going to use action verbs. So that is basically going to be our lessons for today under the chapter of action verbs. Grade 1. All right, so basically a verb, right? It tells you what a person, animal, or thing does, right? So basically it is the action that the person does, right? So it shows what the person, animal, or thing does or what they are doing, right? So that is a verb. And if we look at an example, the cat jumps. So now we remember we said that a verb, it tells you either what a person, an animal, or a thing does, right? So now they're saying a cat jumps. So now what is it's like you're asking yourself, what is the animal doing? So if you ask yourself, what is the animal doing? And then we can say he jumps, right? So the animal jumps. So jumps is the verb that tells us what the animal does. We play. So it's the same as asking, what are we doing? So we play, right? So play is our verb. It's the action that we are doing, right? So which means that jumps within the sentence is our verb, and play within the other sentence is our verb, because it basically shows the action that either the person or it is the action that the animal does, which is the cat. And if we look at a few more examples of action verbs, right? And if we look at a few more examples of action verbs, and then we can say the action verbs are break. So it's either you can say the window breaks, or I break the window, or the cup break or breaks. Cry. Selena cries because she lost her doll, right? So cry. It's something that someone is doing. It's something that either Selena or whoever is doing. They cry. Eat. If you are eating, right? It's an action that you're doing. You're eating. Jump. We made an example of the cat jumps. So jump is our action verb. To kick a ball, right? If you're running around and kicking a ball, and then that is the action that you are doing, you are kicking a ball. Run. I run fast, I run after the ball, right? Run is the action verb that tells us what either a person or an animal does. They are running, they run. And smile. See, if you never knew that smile is an action verb, now you know that smile is the verb. So if you are smiling or if you smile, then that is an action. It's something that you are doing. So even as much as we cannot see each other, right? So as much as we cannot see each other, but you are actually doing some action, right? So when it comes to you doing a specific action, especially while I'm busy, right? It means that you are listening because you hear. It's an action that you're doing. You hear or you listen. You're probably looking at your screen, right? So look is the action that you're doing. If you are busy typing or writing, then that is the action that you are currently doing. If you are sitting down, then that is the action that you're doing. You are sitting or I sit. So remember that a verb, it tells you what a person, animal, or thing does. Can be sit, can be look, can be listen, can be cry, can be laugh, right? But that is the action or the thing, or basically the action that either someone, which is a person, or an animal or thing does. All right, so if we look at action verbs, right? Once again, remember we said an action verb, it either tells us what a person, animal, or thing does. So, action verbs, right? It is a verb that shows what the subject of a sentence is doing. So, the subject is either the person, it is the animal, or it is the thing. So, the subject can either be it's either the person, animal, or thing that we are talking about. So the verb, it basically shows what that thing, person, or animal does or is doing. Jackson works at the fire station. So Jackson works at the fire station, which means that if we look at the action or the thing that Jackson does, so if we try to figure out what Jackson does, and then we say Jackson works. So works being our action. Works is what the subject, which is Jackson, does or is doing. If we look at the next one, it says Susan poked Ian in the eye. Susan poked Ian in the eye. What is the action verb within the sentence? What did Susan do? Yes, so if we look at the action that Susan did, and then we say poked is the action that Susan did. Susan poked Ian in the eye. Michael smiled with relief. Smiled being our action because that is something that Michael does. And we traveled to Italy last summer. What is the action that we did? So the action that these people did. And if we look at the action that the subject, which is we, is doing, and then we say traveled. Yeah, so traveled is the action that the subject does. And the subject is either the person, can be an animal, or it can be a thing that is doing the action. All right, so now we're going to go on and have some more examples, right, of action verbs. So if we look at this picture in front of us with a few, these are a few pictures with action verbs. To walk is a verb. It's something that someone is doing. To run is an action that someone is doing. To ride, if you ride your bicycle, then that is an action that you're doing. I said earlier on whether you are sitting down or you are standing up, but sit or sit down is the action that you are doing. And then we have laugh. That is an action verb. When someone reads, it's an action verb. To play, whether you are playing games, TV game, PSP, Xbox, that is an action. To listen, and I said earlier on, whether you're listening to me but you cannot see me, that is an action that you're doing. Cry because you're sad. And to think. So, yes, thinking is also an action that you're doing. All right. So, once again, we said a verb, it tells you what a person, an animal, or thing does. And then we made a few good examples of verbs, of the action that can be done. All right. So we are doing our lesson on A plus students.ca. So we're doing our lesson on A plus students.ca. So now we're going on to A plus students.ca. And our first lesson that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of action verbs is to complete the sentence with a verb to match the picture. So we are going to complete the sentence with a verb to match the picture. All right, if you look at the picture, right, what do you think these two boys are doing? So, what is the action that these two boys are doing? Yes, and if we go down, it says the boys some cake, right? And it's like you're saying, yes, they're eating, or we can just say the boys eat some cake. So we say either eating or we say the boys eat some cake, which means that eat is the verb that the boys are doing. It's the action that the boys are doing. So you can either say eating or you can just say eat. All right. What are the two cows doing? Look at the cows. What do you think they're doing? Because we'll show the action that these two are doing. And we can then say that the cows, they sleep. So we didn't say that the cows, they sleep, right? So well done. Sleep or sleeping is correct. So you can either say sleeping or you can say sleep, but that is basically the action that these cows are doing. And if you look at these two kids, right, what are they doing? We see toys, we see little cars. So we can then say that they either play or we can say playing. So Brad and Sarah. So we can either say they play or we can say playing. But in this case, play is the correct answer. So Brad and Sarah play, right? So play, it basically tells us what they are doing. So play, it tells us what they are doing. All right, so now we're going on to our test, right? We're going to complete the sentence with a verb to match the picture. So Brad and Sarah, so what are they doing? Do they play? Do they cry? Do they skip? Or do they jump? So we need to say what Brad and Sarah is doing or what they do. All right, so we can say Brad and Sarah play, right? So they play. And play is correct. Nate and Gabby, an airplane. What are they doing? What are Nate and Gabby doing? So Nate and Gabby, right? Do they take an airplane? Do they see an airplane? Do they shout an airplane or do they touch an airplane? So look is almost correct. So what is a word that is similar to look? Is it take? Is it see, shout, or touch? So we can then say Nate and Gabby see an airplane. So see is our verb that tells us what Nate and Gabby does. Yes. So if we look at the sentence, right, or the picture, the girl, what is this girl doing? Does it look like she's napping? She naps. she hides, she sings, or she draws. What is she doing? So we can then say that she hides, right? Because there someone is looking for her. All right. So we can then say hides. And hides is correct. It's something that she's doing, right? She hides. So well done. Hides or hide is correct. So what is this boy doing? He what a bike? Does he draws a bike, rides a bike, sleeps a bike, or buys a bike? So we need to choose the correct word from the four options at the bottom to say what he a bike. All right, so we can say he rides a bike. So he rides a bike, right? So he's basically on his bicycle and he rides a bike. So we they said ride, riding, or rides. It is correct. Rides is correct. All right. What are the children doing? If you look at the picture, what do you think the children are doing? So they say the children, they wash the dog, they miss the dog, they walk the dog, or they sing the dog. What is the correct answer that goes with that sentence? The children, the dog. So we can then say the children, do they wash, miss, walk, or sing? So we can say they wash the dog. So well done. Wash is correct. All right, we're going to do the last picture. What is this guy doing? Seth what's the cup? Does he paint the cup, buys the cup, fills the cup, or he shouts the cup? So what is Craig doing? So Seth, does he paint the cup, buys the cup, fills the cup, or shouts the cup? All right, so we can then say Seth fills the cup because he's pouring water into the cup, which means that he is filling up the cup. He fills the cup. All right, so now we're going to identify action verbs. And we say the verb, it tells you what the person, an animal, or a thing does. If we were to identify the action verb, if you look at the sentence, it says Alex naps. What is the action that tells us what Alex does? So we can then say in this case, if we were to identify the action verbs, then we can say naps. So Alex naps, right? They cook lunch. They cook lunch. They cook lunch. What is the action verb or the verb within the sentence? So they cook lunch. What is the action? If we were to identify the action within that sentence, and we can then say cook. So cook is something that they did, right? They cook lunch. And cook is our action verb. So we can say, it says the bees fly. The bees fly. So if we were to find the verb, then we will say fly. So the bees fly. And fly, correct. That is the verb with the action verb. All right, let's do our test. The balloon pops. Is it the balloon, or is it pops? So the balloon pops. And if we were to find or identify the verb within that sentence, and then we can say pops. Because that basically tells us or shows us what happened, right? Or the action that took place. And pop is correct. So well done. The car stops. So the car stops. Is it car, or is it stops? All right, so if we find the verb either between the car or stops, we need to find the verb within that sentence. So we need to find the verb. And if we find the verb, then yes, well done. Stops is our action verb. So stops is our action verb. The babies sleep. So the babies sleep. We need to find the verb. Is it babies, Or is it even sleep? So the babies sleep. Yes, and we're going to choose sleep. So we're going to choose sleep because it tells us what the babies are doing. So the babies, they sleep. The children play. So the children play. We need to find the verb. Is it the? So if we find the verb within the sentence, either the children or play. So play is the action, the verb that tells us what the children does. So we said play. And play is correct. So well done, everybody. Play is correct. Right? So far we have completed the sentence with a verb to match the picture. So now we're going to use the action verbs. We're going to use the action verbs. So once again, a verb, it tells you what the person, an animal, or thing does. And we made quite a few examples of verbs or action verbs. So verb, it tells you what a person, animal, or thing does. So now it says we need to complete the sentence with the verb. So Colin into the pool, into the cold pool. So what did Colin do? All right. So we can then say Colin jumps. So jumps is it's our verb. All right. So Robin A picture of a parade. What did Robin do? She what a picture of the parade. So we need to say what Robin did. So a verb tells you what a person, animal, or thing does. So we can say Robin paints, right? So paints a picture of a parade. All right. So that is a few examples that Rina made of using action verbs. So we first identified it and now we are using it. So now we're going to do our test. Tim and Jill, do they guess the answer or they happy the answer? So Tim and Jill, we can say they guess the answer, right? Because remember, guessing and thinking, that is also an action that you're doing. And we said guess is our answer. So well done. Guess is correct. The teacher, do we say story a book or reads a book? So the teacher, do we say story a book or reads a book? And yes, read is correct. So the teacher reads a book and reads is correct. The king. So we say the king book at the story or the king laughs at the story. So basically we can say the king laughs at the story. And now the last one, it says she. Do we say home or hears a funny noise outside her room? She home or she hears a funny noise outside her room? All right, and we will say yes, and yes is correct. So well done, yes is correct. All right, so that is now it on action verbs, right? Where we identified as well as we used action verbs that we either matched with a picture or basically just where we identified the action verbs. All right, so this is now the end, and we said an action verb, it tells us what a person, thing, or animal does. right? All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on action verbs. Thank you very much for joining our class. Have a good day further.